The road whispers to us in unique ways. I slowly learned to listen to these whispers as I continued my travels. I wasn't aware of this until I started my travels, and now I notice it everywhere. Whatever your journey is, the path carved for you has a way of speaking to you. If you listen to it carefully, it'll show you how to grow. After learning how to listen to this whisper, I grew in ways I didn't think were possible. One whisper I've been hearing since my journey was you can't miss Nicaragua. And I was curious, what's in Nicaragua? I don't know. I guess there's only one way to find out. Everyone's path is going to be a little different from one another. Some might be to travel the world, provide for their family, be there for someone. But despite how different all of our paths are, there's one thing that is similar in all those paths, and it's listening to that internal dialogue. Now, this internal dialogue starts off with a bit of a whisper, a suggestion, maybe from a friend or something that you caught curiosity on your own. And if left alone, it eventually becomes a nagging voice that you can't ignore. And for me, that's what developed in travel. I had put off travel for so long that it became this nagging voice that I had to go out and pursue. And that resulted in this year-long trip across Latin America. Now, on these travels, I had a set few countries that I wanted to go to, and Nicaragua was never part of the list. But since my travels, I consistently heard the suggestion, you can't miss Nicaragua. And I had no clue what Nicaragua had in store for me. And I was very curious, what is in Nicaragua? And without doing too much research, I more or less just went with the flow, entered the country, and let everything just happen. And it resulted in one of the best countries I've ever been to. Now, my initial plan was to start in Guatemala and fly over to Colombia and not visit any of the Central American countries. However, with heavy recommendation, I decided to throw Nicaragua in there and every country in between as well. Now, I had my concerns initially with El Salvador, formerly known as the most dangerous country in the world, and Honduras, also a country that's not that safe to travel through. But what transpired was a beautiful journey and huge personal development and growth. Now, the first leg of the tour was actually getting from Guatemala all the way to Nicaragua. Now, there is a 20-hour bus from Antigua all the way to Leon. These are two cities from Guatemala all the way to Nicaragua, but it's 20 hours. And I actually met another traveler and several travelers that had gone through El Salvador, saying it's actually really nice and safe. So with that being said, I did a bit more research, and it seems like El Salvador is a safer country to go to. So I decided to take a bus to their capital, San Salvador. Now, in the capital, I was genuinely amazed by how modern it felt. I felt at home with the Denny's right by and mall with AC. Something that's rarely seen in Central America is AC, especially in a mall. And as I did a tour to hike up Santa Ana, a volcano with a beautiful lagoon in the middle of it, along with a beautiful lake, I was blown away by the beautiful nature, the rich culture and history that El Salvador provided. And all in all, how safe I actually felt in my country. I only stayed in El Salvador for a few days. Afterwards, I took a shuttle all the way to Leon, Nicaragua. And yes, I decided to skip Honduras. Honduras is well known for their cheap diving lessons. But other than that, it's actually not the safest country to travel through, and I never heard anything on the road saying it's a must-see country. So with 4 hours of a bus ride, I skipped over Honduras. Once I arrived in Leon, the next 2 weeks in Nicaragua went by in a blur. Now, this initial tour involved hiking Cerro Volcan and sledding down the side of the volcano on a wooden board. We started the tour in the back of a truck being whipped by branches. It's weird looking down at black ashes compared to white snow. So instead of snow pants, we had jumpsuits, and instead of helmets, goggles and a mask. It's definitely one of the most unique activities I've ever done.
Okay, let's go.
Go? All right. Now, initially on that day, I was gonna book a hostel to Managua, the capital of Nicaragua, to maybe stay there a day or two and figure out what my next steps were gonna be. Little did I know that is not what was gonna happen. After the Volcan tour, we went down to a beach, and there I met Nicholas. We were actually gonna continue our travels for the next 2 weeks and the rest of Nicaragua together. Now, where everyone was going was actually a town called Granada. And mainly what's in Granada is a treehouse party. That was a huge rave party held every Friday. But leading up to it, when we got there, the beautiful hostel I stayed at, Oasis, I actually bumped into an old traveler we had met in Guatemala. And the following 2 days, we went out on very cheap tours. We went out to an active volcano called Masaya, where you could see the lava churning in the volcano. We also went to Laguna de Apoyo, where I worked on my tan. It was a beautiful lake, and I continued to practice on my swimming there. And finally, the actual event that everyone went to Granada for, the treehouse party. Now, this treehouse party is very difficult to get to. You get on a chicken bus and ride out for about 45 minutes. We all transfer onto this dodgy truck, and there's like 4 or 5 dozen of us just standing in the back of this truck as it goes further into the forest, and it eventually drops us off onto a path, and you walk up this path for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you're greeted by literally a treehouse in the middle of the jungles. I didn't take too much footage of this, but I have amazing photos of the scenery that we had there. It was essentially drinking and partying and a rave, face painting. There was so much to do. We literally continued to drink from 4 p.m. all the way to 2 a.m. It has been the most I ever drank, and I definitely don't think I'll be drinking soon afterwards. But afterwards, me and Nicholas went to San Juan to do, guess what? Party again. Now in San Juan, you're there mainly for Sunday Fun Day, or they would like to call it a pool crawl, where you go to 3 different locations, all of which contain pools, and more or less, you're just having a good time going to different hostels and partying. But the main thing we were in San Juan for was to actually go up north to a beach called Playa Madera. In that beach, you're actually able to get very cheap lessons for surfing. And I tried my hand in surfing for the next 2 days with Nicholas. I didn't get much footage because it is so difficult to hold a GoPro and also learn how to surf and attempt to surf. I did get some cool shots of other people surfing and this beautiful photo of the sunsets. Now, those following 2 days, I definitely tried my best along with Nicholas to learn how to surf. We weren't very successful, but we are able to get up on our boards maybe once every dozen tries. But if anything, it was an amazing experience to try to learn how to surf, especially because I only learned how to swim a month ago. The last stop of this crazy adventure in Nicaragua was Omotepe. Omotepe is an island created out of 2 volcanoes. And the main mode of transportation on this island is via motorcycle. And I haven't ridden a motorcycle in over 4 to 5 years, but it was a beautiful experience driving around on the motorcycle, seeing the beauty that this island had to offer. The main hike to do in Omotepe is Waterfall San Raymond. Now, this hike isn't anything that's very difficult or very high. What made it very difficult though was the humidity and heat that you have to experience in the hike. The dense forest did provide beautiful shade, however the climate was still terribly hot, and I was pretty much sweating the entire time. At the end of the hike, you're greeted with a breathtaking view of this beautiful waterfall. And this waterfall isn't crashing down. It is a light sprinkle like a cold shower. Very refreshing after the hike up. Now, on the last night of this crazy adventure of going town to town based off recommendations, the last night obviously came from a recommendation. And we were treated with a beautiful fire show at the end of the night to enjoy a beautiful send-off of Nicaragua. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Nicaragua, start to finish. It genuinely was a treat to continuously bump into old friends and travelers alike, just traveling across the country. And the main thing that I learned in Nicaragua was that the road whispers. There's small, subtle hints and suggestions that everyone talks about during their travels. And slowly but surely did I learn how to listen and act on these small recommendations and whispers that everyone keeps talking about. And usually they come with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions, but soon do they turn into spontaneous adventures that I genuinely love and cherish. And everything in Nicaragua, aside from the volcano boarding, was not planned. I didn't plan to go to any of these parties or any of these islands. I had nothing on the itinerary, and I couldn't be any more happier with how I traveled Nicaragua. Now, the path ahead of me is a long one. I still have a lot of other countries to go to and a lot longer to go. It's only been 2 months in 7 countries, but I've learned so much. I've spent the first month really honing in on my editing, filming, and storytelling skills. I spent 2 weeks in Guatemala to really learn how to speak Spanish, and Nicaragua has genuinely taught me how to be a solo backpacker. But what unfortunately happens is when I focus on one aspect, the other two fall short. So the upcoming months is definitely going to be a challenge of a balancing act, trying to make sure I spend enough time and effort in all 3 aspects and make sure each one flourishes as well as the last 2 months have been, if not better. On this journey, there are so many uncertainties. I don't know who I'll meet, what I'll be learning, when I'll get there, or where I'll be going. But one thing's for certain, I'll get all the answers to all my questions through action. Learn to act on the whispers of your personal journey. If left alone, they'll turn into a nagging voice that'll only go away through action.